Hi, my name is Nick Weiss. I am the founding and managing attorney of Weiss Law in South Euclid and Elyria, Ohio. I want to talk about best practices for Ohio landlords. We represent quite a few landlords, particularly here in Cuyahoga County. So I'm going to be talking mostly about dealing with Cuyahoga County, in particular Cleveland Municipal Court. Step one, this seems obvious, but I am still shocked how often we get contacted by a landlord with no written lease. Please just have anything, anything. If you don't want to pay us to do a lease, there are leases online. If you don't even want to look online, if you don't even want to Google it, then you can go to the Cleveland Municipal Court and they have a form with a model lease that is compliant with everything that you need to do in Cleveland. Is it the most robust lease in the world? No, but it'll work for any property that you've got in Northeast Ohio. I am begging you, please have a written lease, have something written down. When we get calls from people and I ask them, who do you want me to evict? I very much want the answer to be a name, not, I don't know. We let them in a year ago and they've been paying month to month. Essential terms in your lease, we talked about this in a different video. Names of the tenants, names of the landlords, who owns the property, who is the property management company, who are they actually getting in contact with, and importantly, the addresses and contact information for each of those properties. Each of those parties. I have gotten landlords who have gotten in real trouble before because in their zeal for anonymity, right? They don't want people to know who actually owns this property. They've really tied themselves in knots. There are requirements in Ohio, we talk about this in a separate video, that if you don't have certain identifying information for the parties in the lease, you lose certain protections as a landlord. You don't put that on there, and there's a problem. A tenant doesn't have to wait 30 days for you to fix one of those problems where they can leave. You've waived that defense. They can just breach and leave because you, the landlord, didn't want to put a phone number down on your entity. So don't do that. Put identifying information, put some kind of contact information for the tenant to actually reach you. You know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you have a property manager that'll do third-party background checks, great, do that. Build that into your pricing. But oftentimes you don't need to go that far. A lot of the information that you're interested in as a landlord is publicly available. You can go on the Muni Court's website and see if there have been any legal actions either for or against the tenant that's applying. That is a Google search away. So make sure you're doing that screening process. Make sure you're not cheaping out on that screening process, because a bad tenant is more expensive than no tenant. On that, when we're talking about that, for the love of God, please get insurance. Insure your building, insure yourself for damages that the tenant might cause. Yes, it is another cost on the endless number of costs that you are incurring as a landlord. But again, we have seen worst case scenario after worst case scenario where the tenant just breaks everything. You don't want to be on the hook for that. You want your insurance company to be on the hook for that. The other thing that often comes up is how we deal with security deposits. Landlords, if in general, you need to take that deposit and you need to put that in a separate account. It can't be in your general fund. It can't be anywhere else. It has to be a protected account that just kind of hangs out over there for the duration of the lease. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's supposed to be an interest-bearing account of 5%, which I know most of you are not doing. Security deposit procedures are just that. You just have to follow the procedure when it's going through. When a tenant vacates, you've got 30 days to either give them back a full amount of their deposit or give them back a part of their deposit or none of their deposit with a list of itemized deductions. What happened to that deposit? You can apply that to a lot of things. You can apply that to rent. That's the most common one when we're doing that. You can apply that to actual damage to the property that has been caused by the tenant beyond normal wear and tear. A broken door, replacing that, acceptable. Big grooves in the floor, replacing that, acceptable. Please do not bill them for dusting or just general painting over anything that you would have had to do anyway. In a perfect world, to get the property ready for the next tenant, you cannot deduct that security deposit from the prior tenant. If you do that, you're going to subject yourself to liability on double the value of that wrongfully held deposit. And if you're up against a savvy tenant lawyer, all of their attorney's fees. So when you're doing that deduction, think, is this something I would have had to do anyway with a perfect tenant? And if the answer is yes, do not deduct that expense. Maintain the rental property, meet your legal standards, respond to the tenants. Many landlords are investing in designated tenant portals for repairs and for other things. Highly, highly, highly recommend that. So that all communication goes through there for either your property manager or if you're self-managing. There, you don't necessarily want your tenant to have your personal cell phone number. That can get annoying and get annoying fast. But by generating everything through that single portal, that single point of contact, not only do you have a record that you can show me later if there's a dispute, or that I can show a judge later if there's a dispute, but all your communications are right there. There is very, very, very little room for miscommunication. That can include not just communication, but it can include payment, which I also highly recommend. Many of you are still taking payments or accepting payments with money orders, with checks, etc., and that's fine. There's a place for that, but it's not nearly as easy for me when I'm trying to prove payment and non-payment than it is just going through an electronic ledger. Make your life easier, make my life easier. Use the tools that are already there to help landlords manage themselves and prove their case down the line. The questions, the calls I get most of the time are when all of those other things have failed and we need to evict for some reason. Different courts have different requirements. They're not uniform across Ohio. They're not even uniform within Cuyahoga County. Different municipalities have different requirements. By far, the hardest court in Cuyahoga County to do an eviction is Cleveland Municipal Court. It's a whole list of requirements that you have to meet before you can even file that eviction. Most importantly, you need to have a rental registration, and that requires a lead safe certificate. Those two hurdles will bump out a lot of landlords off the bat with very good reasons for wanting to do an eviction, but they can't. Take care of that. Stay on top of that. It is not expensive to do a rental registration. You can do the whole thing online now. You don't have to go anywhere. So make sure that those things are taken care of. Be patient. I know we want to get them out. We all want to get them out. Either they haven't paid for a month or 2 months, or they're breaking things, or all that kind of stuff. But especially in Cleveland, Cleveland has a right to counsel program. That means a lot of these tenants will be given free attorneys, either through legal aid or through a private attorney, and they're going to gum up the works. Go in understanding that there will be delays. So there will be at least one continuance of the initial hearing. There will be possibly some motion practice, some other things. Other municipal courts in the area, it's a little bit easier. We don't have to deal with that stuff. But in Cleveland especially, your eviction will not be easy. It will not be simple, and it will not be cheap. Go in with your eyes open and stay informed, right? There are lots of really great real estate investment groups in and around Cleveland that freely share information among investors, best practices, best forums, etc., etc. And a lot of that is available for free for those best practices, for that information, for when you're doing that. A lot of people become landlords because they want the passive investment stream, right? I get that. But the days when you can do that are basically gone. You need to be an active landlord, or at least pay someone else, like a property manager, to be an active landlord. In Cleveland, especially, the days where you can just print money from owning property, those are gone. Stay abreast, stay updated. Go and look at your property. I am shocked by the number of times I get a call from someone who has never actually seen the property they bought and are renting. That's a lot to handle and a lot to send a few for best practices. There's certainly more that I could talk about, and I'd like to talk about with you. So if you have questions, feel free to give our office a call.